Boo! Roy, I scared you.
Hey, Warren, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. This is our big scary episode.
It sure is. This is episode number 23, and this is an episode of Space 1999 that when I think fans or even folks that are just aware of Space 1999, they always seem to gravitate towards this episode because as you tried to just scare me, we hear about the stories of people, kids that were kids back in 1975 that were essentially our age or were terrified by this episode.
Traumatized, and
Traumatized, yeah.
no word of a lie. This episode, it scarred me. And it's probably why it was so impactful. It's probably why I'm a fan to this day. It just stuck with me all these years and just forged so many wonderful memories. We'll get into all this, but yeah, no, it was a unique blend of both science fiction and horror, and yeah, I to this day love that genre with the alien movies and things like that. So but no, well, welcome everybody. This is going to be a big, fun, exciting episode. And Roy, did you happen to have anything from ITC on Dragon's Domain?
I do. And by the way, if anybody is really trying to figure out what episode we're talking about, I kind of gave a little bit of a hint with just saying episode 23. I'm sure that was the big hit. Never mind what Warren and I were saying about being traumatized and, having the whatchamacallit scared out of us when we were kids. But ITC's promo was a macabre monster in outer space, an eerie graveyard of lost spaceships. Real or imagination? Years of mental torment reach a terrifying climax. And of course, we were talking about Dragon's Domain.
Dragon's Domain. Well, wonderful. We will dive into our beautiful intro and come on back after that with some very special guests as well.
Here we go. That intro never gets old.
Well, hello and good morning. Welcome to Mr. Anton Phillips and the lovely Suzanne Peterson. We appreciate you joining us today to discuss this very famous episode. Hope you're both doing well.
Yes, we are. But I am. I'm sure you, Suzanne. I'm sure you're doing well.
Yeah, I am. I'm fine. Thank you.
Oh, it's great to see both of you, and thank you so much for coming on and spending your time with us this afternoon or this evening, depending upon where you're located in the world. So we really appreciate it.
That's a pleasure.
It is.
And speaking of which, we have a lot of folks that are chiming in. We are broadcasting live, so I just want to put that up on the screen just to give greetings to everyone. I see Faye is saying hello to everybody.
Hi, Faye.
Hi.
Also, Frida is out there.
Hello, Frida.
Hello.
Faye is saying it's really Jeffrey, not Faye. Oh, using her Mac. Oh, well, hello, and thanks for joining us. Jeffrey. Let's see here. Also, Rabavia is out there. And welcome to the show. And then also Francine is joining us. Welcome, Francine. Chris is also out there. Welcome, Chris. Martin is also joining us from New York. Sorry, I'm having a little problem with my computer. Warren, can you bring that up?
Yep, give me 1 second. Can't find Martin, but holy smokes, there's a bunch of people in the chat already. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining in.
Hi, Missy. Missy's joining us as well.
Yep.
She said, good morning. Ooh, the episode that led many of us kids to hide under the blanket and peek under while watching it. Monique is also joining us.
Monica's out there. Vincent's out there. Christopher Michael Dalton, Alan Bailey, Philip Leavenworth. Good morning to everybody, and thanks again for joining us on this special installment. Robert Ferrugia. So anyway, it's been a few months since the big gathering in London last year, and hopefully you've both been well. Just tell us, bring us up to speed on what's new in your lives.
Well, you've got a lot to say, haven't you, Anton? Because you've been really busy.
Well, since September, September, it seems like just the other day, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Time seems to have raced away since then. And a lot has happened, yes. I suppose the biggest thing that I've been up to, in January, the producer of one of the theatre producers here in London, independent theatre producers, contacted me to direct a play about the reggae icon Gregory Isaacs. I don't know if you are familiar with him, but he's just a notch or two under Bob Marley in terms of world renown and popularity. And so, yes, this producer got in touch with me and said, well, would we're doing this play about Gregory Isaacs. It's called The Cool Ruler. Will you direct it? And I said, well, it's certainly, I'm interested. Can I see the script? And he said, well, we don't have a script. I said, oh. But I noticed that there are posters out and tickets were being sold at the main theatres. So they're selling tickets. And certainly one of the bigger theatres is already half sold out on this play, which doesn't have a script, doesn't have a director. It did have the person playing Gregory Isaacs. So the long and the short of it is I agreed that I would write the script. But I was off in about a week or so to the Canary Islands to get away from the English winter. So it was quite handy to have to write that, because then I was able to do the research while sitting down in the sun of the Canary Islands, and it was a nice way to pass the time. Came up with a script, then came back to London, cast the play, went into rehearsals, and the play opened on the 25th of May, memory serves me right, at a theatre called the Hackney Empire, which is quite a big theatre. It seats 1,500 people, and that had been sold out weeks before.
Wow.
As had most of the other venues that the play was going into. The play was very well received, standing ovations, mainly because, this person, Gregory Isaacs, he's got such a loyal fan base. He died, several years ago. But his fan base has remained really strong, really loyal. And they turned out in their thousands, literally in their thousands, to see this production.
Amazing.
I was just going to say that must have been an incredible feeling, knowing that you brought that many fans together of his work, and then they were celebrating it in that capacity.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it was very good because it was created over a very short period of time. If you're going to be doing a new play, first of all, you want to, if you're commissioning a play, you're giving the playwright usually a year to come up with a script. And perhaps even just with the first draft of the script. Well, here we, not only created the script, but did the production and had its first night in less than 6 months.
Wow.
I was fortunate in as much as my partner is a professional script writer, so she was over my shoulder quite a bit, as was my daughter. My first daughter, Marissa, is also a professional script writer. So I leaned heavily on them, and they certainly leaned on me. Yeah. But so between us all, we did pull it off. And there's a possibility this might come to America, by the way. They're talking about a tour of the eastern seaboard from Massachusetts down to Florida later this year, not even next year. So if it happens, I'll let people know, of course, and it helps if you're a fan of Gregory Isaacs.
Yeah, definitely. But no, definitely keep us surprised of that, Anton. Now, here's a question for you. Do you, in regards to, now with writing, directing, and acting, do you have a preference as far as which one you do, or is it really just, they're all different, but they're all connected to the arts. But do you have a preference in which?
Yes, certainly. Definitely directing, producing and directing, which is what, the latter part of my career has been all about. And my one note always to writers is that they should never direct their own stuff. So that very important rule on my part, I broke it myself. Directing my own stuff. But it seemed to work in this instance anyway.
Sure. No, which is great.
Definitely directing. I mean, acting at the time was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed it immensely. And when you're acting in something also which is successful, that's a real kick. But for me, acting in theater was far more rewarding than acting on television. And by rewarding, I mean aesthetically as an artist. Right. Because you're interacting with the audience all the time. Every single show you do is different because the audience is different, and you're reading it and responding in that new way. So, but it's also, God, it's also hard work, and you've got to do it every night for weeks and weeks. Whereas at least with directing, after the first night, you're out of it. Yeah. You can go off and find a nice beach somewhere to lie down.
But all that hard work really comes to pay off, though, in the sense that, it morphs into the final production. So that's wonderful.
Yes, I suppose the most satisfying thing about directing, producing and directing is, if it's successful, then you get all that, you garner all that well-wishing and success. If it's a failure, you also garner all of that. So they're all. Whereas if you're an actor in a successful play, fine. If you're an actor in a not so successful play, it's the same deal.
Sure.
Because something else is being judged. Because you can be a good actor in a bad play, but do your part well.
Right.
And that will be seen, and that will be right. So someone mightn't like the play, but your performance will be okay. I mean, in a way, that's how I got into Space 1999, because I was in a play in a pub theater, a play which nobody had any idea what the play was about, including me. I had no idea, and the director. But we went at it 100% as if we knew what we're doing. Michael Barnes, the casting director, came along and saw it, and liked what he saw. So even though I had no idea what it was about, I didn't portray that. I portrayed what I thought was relevant to the part, and that's what caught his eye. So you can be in a terrible play, but do it well yourself, and and make a difference in that sense.
And you hear a lot of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if you're in a play, if you've directed a play and it's terrible, you get all of that. It doesn't matter how good the acting is; the director gets clobbered.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But Anton, good for you for sort of walking in or stepping in to pick up the pieces of a disorganized, like you said, they were selling tickets. They didn't have a script. It sounds very similar to a lot of Hollywood blockbusters nowadays.
And Suzanne, how are you doing? And how is going on? We were fortunate to see you in September, And, now we're fast forwarding. It's July already. It's been 10 months.
I know. I can't believe it. It's gone so quickly. It's just when you get older, everything flies, don't you think? Well, you're not old like us.
No. Time is going very fast, I can say.
It is. It is. What have I been doing? Oh, I've been doing lots of things, lots and lots of things. I've got a job coming up. So in a place called Bath. Do you know Bath? You heard of Bath?
I've heard of Bath, Pennsylvania, but not Bath in the UK. And that's right up the road, ironically enough.
Yeah. That's coming up. But
well, Bath, just to put it in some sort of context, Bath is actually an old Roman town.
That's right.
And it's got a lot of the Roman buildings, heritage. You go to Bath, they've got ancient Roman baths, literally, filled with water that you still can go and they're supposed to be mineral waters, natural mineral baths, which is why it became famous in the first place. And it's still there in those Roman baths. You can go and rent them for an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's a very ancient
English
town with a wonderful cathedral.
Absolutely. And they've also got a wonderful crescent, haven't they, Anton?
Yeah.
Which in fact, do you know where I mean? That crescent with those.
It's Regency.
It's Regency.
But maybe we shouldn't get too.
No. But anyway, what I was going to say, they filmed a lot of films. Yeah. They've got a lot of films.
It's a location, yeah.
Mm.
It sounds like it has beautiful architecture and the location is very historic.
Yeah.
That's what I love about Europe. And unfortunately, in the US, we are not privy to that. The first time I was in Europe, I mean, when we went to, what was it? It was in France. We went, and I was amazed by the castles and just, there were so many of them. And it's just, it's so much history. And with the US, I mean, literally, we're coming up on 250 years next year. So we're such a young country by comparison. But all the structures and the architecture, and then having that available for the different types of movies that have been filmed and utilized, this is just another wonderful example, Suzanne.
Yeah. I also, I've got, you would know, Anton. I worked on a TV series called The Professionals.
Oh, yes. Oh, wow.
Do you remember that, Andrew?
Yes. I never ever did an episode of that, but yes, it was a very popular series. Very popular.
I've got a signing for that. I've got it in the end of August. I've got to go for a signing for that. Just a day thing. And I went to I did a charity thing in London a few weeks ago, and that was for all the Bond girls and for space and everything, and Star Wars. But that was a pure charity thing.
But Suzanne is a designer, which is what you're going to Bath to do, presumably. Yeah, you've got a design job.
Yeah, I'm doing the house there, so that's going to be a bit of a big job. I want to retire, but you can't turn it down.
Suzanne, when you do that signing, you'll have to let us know the dates, and then what we can do is we can post about it and then let folks know that you're going to be there. Okay, and you said that'll be in August, and we can get the word out for you.
Hours, Roy. It's a bloody long way. I've got to drive about 3 hours, I think, to Berkshire, which is about 3 hours from here, but it's only for 2 hours. And the guy that's doing it's such a nice person that I agreed to do it. So, but it's only for a few hours. But I'll have to let you know the dates, Roy.
Definitely, and we can definitely share that information because there might be folks that might be relatively close to it.
Yeah.
Shari says hi to everyone as well. Just wanted to put that out there.
I like you say it's very far away. It's 3 hours away. But of course, in America, 3 hours is nothing.
Yeah.
It's so true.
I remember when I lived in Connecticut, my mother came and stayed, and I said, oh, we're just going to go to Westport, which is down on the shore. And I think it was about a 2-hour drive. I said, I'll go and have my hair done. And she said, where the hell, how far is this place? So, I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, here, I don't mind where I drive because I'm used to driving in America, you know, all over the place. I enjoy driving anyway. But people think I'm mad. Why are you going all that way?
Yeah, things tend to be a little bit spread out here, and
Absolutely.
we'll go to different events. Like New York City, for me personally, is from us it's about an hour and a half away, which really isn't too bad. Philadelphia is about the same, so we're very centralized. But sometimes there'll be events that are taking place. It could be in Maryland, and that's like a 3-hour drive. And I've actually driven to conventions for that.
Yeah.
Well, and a couple weekends ago, I drove to Calgary again, and that's nothing for me. But it's you hop in the car, you're there for 7 or 8 hours straight, and yeah, I can do it like.
I mean, I have friends in New York who nip up to Toronto.
Yeah.
Really? And they don't think anything of it. They go for a weekend, you know, from New York City to Toronto and back by Sunday night, and you think, oh.
Well, I was doing a job down in Cornwall a couple of years ago. I did this whole house up, and I was driving backwards and forwards about once every 10 days and staying there for a few days. That was a 7-hour drive. I have to say I was exhausted.
Yeah, that's a little long. When you start passing the 4-hour mark.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you now. Again, now we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Space 1999, and we're this episode that we're talking about today, that we're going to be, you know, which has kind of been like our the basis of, you know, bringing us all together. Dragon's Domain. This was one of the last episodes, second to last episode that was filmed for the series. It was filmed in the beginning portion of 1975, between January and February. Now, I'm curious, do you have any recollections of seeing this, I'll say, creature, the monster on the set? Do you recall that?
I do. Some guy at the back operating it. It was special effects. That's what it was. And they were operating it. It was horrible. It was vile, actually. It was quite, even though I knew what it was still quite scary looking at it, you know, when you're on the set.
Right.
But there was some guy back pressing buttons and everything. It was horrible. So
it's very difficult to do monsters, isn't it? You know, especially monsters that you can't just climb into a suit and stomp around in.
Yeah.
That's what I've always said about this episode, is that the creature design was so unique, and that's why it was so memorable, because so many other shows at the time, and even to this day, just rely on that man in a rubber suit type of mentality, right? This was I think what made it stick in so many people's minds back in the day. It was extremely well implemented, I think.
Absolutely.
And definitely what adds to it too is, I mean, they did different camera angles. The angles when it was being photographed, it wasn't really concentrated for a long period of time on one specific angle. It would cut away to different points of view. Also, you had the sound effects.
Sound design.
Watching it visually.
Yeah.
The wind.
Who directed this episode?
I'm sorry. What was that?
I just wondered. I can't remember who directed this episode.
Was it Charlie?
I think it was Charlie Crichton. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Written by Chris Penfold.
He must have enjoyed himself with us, Charlie.
And what was fun with this episode too is they did flashback sequences too, where it actually takes place back on Earth. So that was interesting in regards to the story, because it's kind of giving a different perspective of the whole episode. In fact, one of the things that takes place is, and this is just a lot of fans will have picked this up when they're doing the initial flashback. What happens is they're doing like a news report, and then what happens is the newscaster comes on and he says, space news, Dateline September 3rd, 1996, and the Ultra Probe. The Ultra Probe was launched in June, but what happened was when he's saying September 3rd, 1996, which actually happens to be my son's birthday, Ryan. Just had to throw that plug in there. It's interesting when he was reading it, and he was Bob Sherman was the actor. He read it as though he was reading the date from in the U.S. So actually, the date was supposed to be March 6th of 1996, but he was not reading it the way you would say it in England, in the UK, in Europe. I mean, the US we're kind of backwards. We do, we always put the month first, then the
month
date
and day got mixed up. Yeah.
So what happened was that got mixed up. For the folks out there that always wondered about that, that's the reason behind that.
Yeah, I get mixed up about those dates myself.
Yeah, no, and those flashback sequences, in my mind, I really appreciated them, and more so as I've gotten older, because it really was one of the few attempts to sort of establish this backstory or some in-universe continuity,
right,
with things. So I thought it was a really smart device for Chris to have used and told parts of the story in flashback like that.
Yeah, definitely, Warren. James is asking, was this no, this was not the series finale. This was the second to the last episode, James. The series finale was The Testament of Arcadia, and that will be the next episode that we'll be covering in regards to this. A good question.
I mean, I didn't spend very much time in this episode, so I never encountered the monster myself, unfortunately. And unless he came to the medical center, needed an aspirin or something. So, well, no, I was just going to say, I don't have any tidbits to add to the story about the filming of it, because I wasn't actually in the studio very much for that episode.
No, we got you on that, Anton. But it's just nice to have you just to reflect and everything too. So that's fine.
I mean, I'm sorry I missed it, because especially if Charlie was directing it, because that must have been an absolute joy to be in the whichever studio it was that they were filming it in, just to witness how he would go about dealing with it and the monster. I wonder how many people he shouted at.
Well, we've heard wonderful stories about the episode with the foam, Space Brain, where they were filling up main mission, and then what happened was it just kept rising. The foam kept rising and rising.
Yeah,
that's right.
One of the things with this episode, though, was one of the guest stars, of course, Johnny Garco from Italy, played a big important role, and a knockout performance. We were thrilled that Johnny was able to join us in London. Did you guys happen to have any chats with him briefly? He was really, really sweet as well.
Yes. No,
I didn't.
I didn't have much to say with him.
Does he speak English?
He does, but it's it different with certain things. He takes it very slow, but he does speak English. Yes, and he was a delight too, because he really was recounting his time on as far as filming the episode, and just talking about his career as well too. He did a lot of spaghetti westerns back in the day.
Yeah, he did. He seemed a sweet man, actually. What a difference. I mean, you look back at these actors, well, all of them actually, don't you, Anton? And you look back and you think, God, we were so young.
Well, he did have lots of nice stories to relay of working with Nick Tate, and Nick was actually sort of coaching him along the way and helping him with the English dialogue, because it was so broken at the time. It's gotten better. So yeah, I mean, he was, like Roy said, he was he still had to take his time in London, but yeah, no, Nick Tate, a very famous story that he was sort of helping him and coaching him along the way back 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Chris was just commenting about it too, saying it's interesting that the original script was intended for Nick as Alan Carter, but Johnny Garco was excellent in it. Meeting him was a high for me at the convention. Yeah, Nick has talked about this where he remembers meeting with Chris Penfold and says that he read a script in which Alan Carter's character was to be the one that was going to be facing, having this backstory, having this history of dealing with the Ultra Probe. And he's talked about this at different points in time as well.
Mm-hmm.
But then it changed. I'm sorry.
I think I met him in Italy. There was a convention in.
Oh, near SpaceCon. Yeah.
And he was. Both of us were the main guests from the series at that, and it was a very, very small convention. So yeah, it's almost like it took place in somebody's kitchen, really.
Well, the one we went to, the one you and I went to, that was
later. This was much earlier. Yes, this was several years ago.
That was small also, wasn't it?
Yeah, but that was delightful. I mean, I really enjoyed that one.
I did too. I thought it was lovely.
That was almost 2 years ago that you went, right?
That's right. Yes.
Again, I recall seeing some pictures. You guys did a lot of sightseeing and touring around Italy. You guys had a wonderful time.
Yeah, they're really lovely. And I mean, I suppose perhaps I was just thinking the restaurants we went to are so good. Really lovely restaurants. Do you remember?
Lovely restaurants.
Yes.
Lovely food.
Yeah. Because I think they pride themselves on in that area of Italy, near to Milan. What was the name of the town? I can't remember it offhand. Moderna.
Yeah. I remember talking about that.
They pride themselves as being the gastronomic center of Italy. And I said this to a waitress I met who came from Rome, and I almost didn't get served.
I've never eaten so much food in all of my life.
It was lovely, wasn't it?
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Wasn't it, Anton?
It was terrific.
Yeah.
That's definitely on the bucket list item of my mom's side of the family. My mom is Italian.
Oh, Italy's lovely. I love it.
My great grandparents were from Italy.
Mm.
Is your surname Italian?
No, it's Swedish.
Oh, right. Okay.
My dad's parents were from Sweden.
And Swedish cuisine, what's that like?
My grandmother was she was a gourmet cook. So and this is going back in the 70s. That was the last time I saw her was in the late 70s. But every time we would visit in Florida, she would always make these wonderful dishes. I specifically remember Swedish meatballs. Her Swedish meatballs were the best. And it's been over like 47 years since, I had them, but it's just something that always stuck in my mind. But yeah, Swedish and Italian, what a mix, right?
yeah, that's I don't think I've come across that mix before, actually. Yeah.
Well, did we lose Suzanne? Uh-oh. Suzanne?
I hope she didn't get sucked in by the monster.
Her arm probably got tired holding up her telephone.
Oh, wow. Hopefully she comes back.
We'll give that a second. Yeah, she's definitely dropped out, but that's okay. We'll see if we can get her back behind the scenes here.
Oh, Nick McCarty. Hi, Nick. Nick is saying he had some issues as well, too.
Anton, I want to ask you, of course, it was a pleasure to meet your daughters back a few months. Everybody's doing fine and everybody's well in the family?
Yes, they're both of them off to a music festival this weekend, actually. There's a music festival here called Love Supreme, which features, I think, mainly sort of soul singers, soul artists of the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s. So, there are some veteran performers performing. And they go to that every year, and it's a whole weekend. I don't know how they're faring because the weather has been very in and out. You know, it's either been nice sunshine or
I'm
thunderstorms.
back.
Hello, you're back.
Hello, sorry. My phone went and it clicked me off. Sorry.
You're good. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the weather has been, so I think they've been alternatively getting soaked and then drying off in the sunshine and then getting soaked again. It's been
That's
sort
what
of
it's like.
weekend.
It's pouring here at the moment.
And it's bright sunshine here.
Yeah, isn't it funny?
Yeah. So yes, no, they're doing well. I mean, Jessica, the younger one, she's been filming for the BBC. She was in Paris making a program about the 75th anniversary of the Paris Metro, the underground or subway. And then just recently she was in the Peak District filming there. I don't quite know what about. I mean, the Peak District is up north and it's supposed to be extremely beautiful. Suzanne, you probably know more about that. I know nothing about the Peak District. Do you?
I've never been to the Peak District. I've been to Yorkshire. I tell you who does know a lot about it is, oh God, what's his name? Oh, it's ridiculous. My brain is terrible. Oh gosh, that met me at when I came to the last convention in the States. Oh God, what's his name?
American person?
No, English.
No, Robert Ferrugia.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, Robert, if you're watching. This is what happens when you get old. You cannot remember names.
I think he was out there today, so yeah.
Oh, well, apologies. I think he moved to the Peak District, so he knows all about it.
Yeah, he says, I can vouch for the Peak District seeing as I live here. And then he put a smiley face.
Yeah. I don't know it at all. I mean, I've been to Yorkshire and the Dales, but I don't really know the north of England that well.
Alan said Peak District borders Staffordshire. The famous town of Buxton, as in Buxton Spring Water, is there.
Oh, yes. That's right.
Yes. Is that also where the Brontes used to prance about and write their novels about? Or is that the Lake District? That's
no, I don't know. I don't know if it's the Lake District. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
Yes. Ask me about London. I can tell you all about London.
But that's interesting, Anton, that I didn't realize that both daughters sort of followed in your footsteps. Then you said the other daughter, Marissa, was a scriptwriter, right?
Yes, she is. And she's, she writes for Netflix and Disney and who's she writing for at the moment? I've forgotten. But there's a television series called, I think for Netflix, called Gladiators. She was one of the writers on that. There's a thing called The Swarm, which was kind of freaky, science fiction-y, about these things coming out of the ocean.
Oh God!
I've heard the title of that. I did hear about that. Yeah, and that was something I wanted to check out too. Yes. And when I hear The Swarm, I think of the 1970s when they were doing the. You remember the Killer Bee movies that they did in the 70s?
Right. Yeah. So that's and she's working on stuff at the moment, but sometimes you're working on stuff at a year or 2 years before it even hits the screen, right? With all the logistics involved and so on. So yes, they're doing well, busy, and thank goodness for that.
Oh, that's awesome! That's awesome. Suzanne, how's everybody in your family? Justin, Xander, everybody's good?
Yeah, they're good. They're really good. Justin's going off for a boys' week to his friend's villa in Mallorca tomorrow for a week. He went to university with Ollie, and in upstate New York he went to Ithaca, and another friend of his is coming there. So there's 3 guys having a fun week in a lovely house in Mallorca. So he's going there for tomorrow, and Xander's doing fabulous. He's lovely. He's the apple of my eye.
Aww.
I bet.
That's wonderful.
He's probably growing. He's probably huge already.
He is. He's very tall. He's going to be like his father. He's going to be taller than his father, I think. And he's doing tennis, playing tennis, and Justin coaches him every Sunday. They go to the tennis courts, and he plays tennis, which is lovely. I think it's really nice. He's a great kid. He's lovely. Bit spoilt, but
Yeah. Well, that's what grandparents are for.
but I adore him. I spoil him. I'm the worst one, so I'm the guilty one. But no, we're all fine. We're okay. I lost my auntie, which was a great relief, I have to say. In May, she was 96. That's the big happens in this year. So, but that was a relief for me because it was becoming quite tiring. I can say that. And then, of course, Prentice, and then Clifton, and oh dear me, everybody's popping off.
Yeah. Only a few of us left standing.
Yeah.
Well, we did want to take a moment and recognize that, yeah, it's been a really rough few weeks for everybody in the Space 1999 family. Prentice was enough of a shock, but then, virtually days later, we found out about Clifton, and it was just so sad, so tragic.
Yes, I mean the surprise is that, and I don't mean to be sort of ungenerous in this, but that Prentice lasted so long because Prentice, was suffering with one lung and so for quite some time. I remember the last time we came to America, he had to fly with oxygen, his own oxygen supply and everything else. So it's I suppose a indication of his strength that he carried on for as long as he did, as ill as he was. Unfortunately, I never really kept too closely in touch with him. He came to see a couple of my productions at different times, and we'd send the odd message to each other. Clifton, it was quite different with Clifton. I met up with Clifton fairly regularly, and we'd go to a pub called the Elgin, where we'd have lunch and a pint of beer, and I used the opportunity to try and sort of delve into Clifton's past, because not really a lot was known about Clifton, certainly not by me, and not by very many people in the acting community. So it was quite interesting talking to him and discovering that he came to England as a teenager, and shortly after coming, he joined a boys' club in the East End of London, and shortly after that, enlisted in the Royal Air Force. He was in the Royal Air Force for not a very long time, but for a while. And then when he came out, found his way into the acting profession, and worked with a woman called Joan Littlewood at a theatre in the East End of London called the Theatre Royal Stratford. And Joan Littlewood is considered to be one of the towering figures in British theatre. She changed how the look of theatre, or added to it, if not changed it. And so to have worked with her would have been a great privilege. And there's what's the name of the play? Is play it later became a film with Rita Tushingham, Taste of Honey.
Taste of Honey.
Taste of Honey, that's right, in which Clifton featured at the beginning of the film, especially. So, and then from there he moved on, and I remember speaking with another well-known black actress in this country called Carmen Monroe, who is probably the most successful black actress that this country produced, or who worked in this country, shall we say. And speaking to her a couple of years ago, saying, that I'd been in touch with Clifton, and did she know him? And her saying, yes, because when she started off in the business, Clifton was the person that they all looked up to, because he was doing what they all hoped that they would do in the profession. And I thought that was interesting, because she's older than Clifton for a start, but I suppose came into the business after he did. But oddly enough, Clifton never really reached out to the black acting community in this country. Is sort of, loosely held together. We support each other's work, and we meet up in each other at various award ceremonies, that sort of thing. But Clifton never really was ever part of that. And in a way, it's reflected in his passing, in as much as a lot of the current black community never heard of him. And I mentioned, Space 1999, those who, the computer guy, yeah. But it's reflected in the fact that, there's not been a huge outpouring of compassion, sympathy, condolences for him over here. I'm in touch with his family in Miami, in Florida, and acting on their behalf over here to see to arrangements for his funeral and so on.
It's sad. It's so sad that he died alone. That's what upset me more than anything. But as you said earlier, Anton, when I spoke to you on the phone, that was his life. He just lived a very odd life.
Yes.
Now, I remember going to his flat, and the way he lived, it was immaculate. The flat was immaculate. Did you go there, Anton?
Yes, I've been there, and I mean, part of the problem at the moment is that I need to go there to, secure his belongings, any papers that the family might want, but I have no access. The hospital that he passed away in can't find his keys, if he had keys on him or anything. So I've been in touch with the landlords of the building, of the apartment house, and I'm waiting to hear from them, because they are the ones who would be able to let me into the apartment where I can, access his papers and so on.
Yeah.
But as you say, I mean, it was a small apartment, but
immaculate. He used to just sit at this little table. I don't know whether it was the same with you, Anton, but when I went there a few times, and he just used to sit at this little table in the kitchen, tiny kitchen, with this light bulb, just a light bulb. It was really sad. But he was, I suppose he was happy. Although he kept saying to me he wanted to move back to Chelsea. Did he say that to you, Anton?
No, I didn't even know he used to live in Chelsea. I thought he was in that particular area of Notting Hill Gate pretty much the whole time.
Well, he bought a flat after Space, and I think it was in Chelsea. And he went to the States when it was he had something, he was writing scripts or something, went to the States, it was the writer's strike, didn't pay the mortgage, came back to London, lost his flat, and that's when he ended up on the streets.
Yes, and also he had all his belongings in storage.
Yes.
The thing is, I mean, he arrived in Hollywood at the perfectly wrong time, because nothing was happening. He used up all his money staying there. And by the time he got back to England, as Suzanne said, he had lost the flat. Not only that, he'd lost all his belongings.
I know.
Because he couldn't pay for the storage, so all of that was binned, and he found himself in a very, very bad situation. But speaking with him the last year or two was really quite interesting, because he was talking about a time in theatre, in television, when if you're a black actor, you couldn't just get a part; it had to be a black part for a start.
Yeah.
And very often they'd bring American actors over to do those parts. So that's the atmosphere and the situation that he thrived in at that time. It's changed quite a bit. In fact, it's almost the opposite, where it's the black actors from Britain going over to America getting parts, which black Americans resent no end, I can tell you. Because one of the things I've been doing is lecturing There's a college over here called the British American Drama Academy. And every summer they run a special course for Black American university students who would like to know more about the Black theatre situation in Britain, how Black theatre is organized, what we're doing, and so on. And they're sent over mainly by universities, so we get students, Black students, coming from Howard University, of course, but some of the others, including Yale and others.
Mm.
And I lecture at that university on the history of Black theatre, Black performance, actually, because we're performing over here long before we were acting.
Yeah.
But also you had to put it into the context, because the history of Black people in Britain is enormous, is utterly, totally different to the history of Black people in America, of course.
Yeah.
Right.
Black people have been coming to Britain with Roman armies back in AD before, or BC rather. There's a Roman emperor who was buried in the north of England, who was a Black emperor, and he died here in Britain. So the history of Black people over here has been quite a long way, and there are paintings of Black musicians, for instance, in the court of Henry VIII. And anyway, I won't give the whole of my lecture just.
That's okay. But you know what, guys? I got to say one thing, and I'm looking at the three of you in this room, and I need to say a big heartfelt thank you to you all for helping me bring Clifton to London last year, because I think we provided for him some moments of happiness and joy. I know we did. And I couldn't have done that without you facilitating things, helping me behind the scenes. It was a wonderful weekend. And I hope that stuck with him, these last few months, because I think we did a really nice thing.
He did enjoy it, didn't he, Anton? He did enjoy it.
I mean, he did enjoy it. And thank you very much for that, Warren. But I think in the first instance, he even considered coming because of a conversation he had with you, Suzanne.
Yeah.
This is certainly what I heard from him, that he'd been having a conversation with you, and you were the one who persuaded him to come.
Yeah,
I couldn't persuade him to sign photographs, for instance.
I said to him, please come, and I will come and pick you up. I'll drive up to London, I'll pick you up and I'll take you there. And then he said, okay. I said, don't you let me down. Don't let me down. And he didn't. So that was good.
Yes, and I think he really enjoyed himself, because I think he lived a very solitary existence.
Yeah.
He did. He had real problems with his hip. He was in pain. I had a job to get him into the car. It was.
But I mean, the fans in Italy wanted him to sign some photographs, which he was constantly refusing to do. And they asked me if I could persuade him, and I spoke to him, and he eventually agreed. So they sent me 400 photographs for him to sign. And we agreed I'd go around to his flat and he'd sign them. And so I go around to his flat. Now, his flat, his apartment block has a security gate, and you need to press a combination to get through. And so I get there and I telephone him. I say, okay, Clifton, I'm at the gate. What's the combination? And he gives me a combination which doesn't work. So I call him again. And he says, yeah, try. And I try it again. And after the third or fourth time, he gives me a combination which is a little bit different to the first one he gave me. So I tried that one, which didn't work either. I said, well, Clifton, can you come down and let me in? And I said, no, I can't come down. I'm not feeling well enough to come down. Try the combination again. By which time I say, look, if you can't come and let me in and I can't get this, I'm going home. I've now been out here for about 25, 30 minutes. And then there's some people working on the building. And one of the workers came down because he sort of stuck his head out the door and asked this guy to go and open the security gate, which he did. So I then make my way up to his apartment. I sit at that little table that you're talking about, Susan.
Yes, yeah.
And he signs all these photographs. And I say, okay, now, they will put the money directly into your bank account. So give me your bank details, which and it's all stacked on this table. And I took the sort code and the account number and so on. And then he says, okay, wait a minute and we'll go and have a drink. I said, you couldn't come down to let me in, and now you want to go and have a drink with me? I said no. I said rather more than no, but for our purposes, no. Was that the last time I saw him? It might have been.
Oh.
We might have met after that, but it sort of epitomizes the kind of state of mind he was in at the time.
Yeah.
The only other thing about that is that the Italians got the money, went to the bank to put the money in, except that they needed one more piece of information. So they called me and said, they need this bit of information for his bank. So I telephoned Clifton. I said, can you get the big number off your statement? I'm not giving you anything. I'm not giving these people. They're people who rip off you and they have all your bank details and you rent it. I said,
Oh, no.
It's entirely up to you. Okay, if you change your mind, let me know. And apparently, at some stage, he went to his bank, and his bank said, "Yeah, of course, give them." And he telephoned me and gave me the information, which I passed on to Italy.
Just a misunderstanding. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, on a positive note, though, I mean, to your point, Warren, I think when you think that at least he got to see the fans in that capacity, at least, and it was a huge event too. So it was nice to have other, stars and other people from the show there and really just to get together. So at least, I mean, he did get that, but from everything that you're describing too, Anton and Suzanne, really, it sounds like he was very, on a certain level too. I mean, very humble. And the fact that he was and Suzanne, you've said this to me so many times when we've talked, that how revered he was really in theater and how he was really appreciated. And Anton, just, you talking about that, it's almost like it was just something that was taken for granted, but he really was a very accomplished performer. And it's
actor, wasn't he, Anton?
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
I mean, and my one regret is that these conversations that I had with him, I didn't have or even just on my telephone to record them as well, because certainly he is part of the history of Black performance in this country. He's one of the earliest ones in modern times that is coming on the heels of people like Paul Robeson, who was a very big deal over here in terms of theatre, and others. He was in that line, really. And when we had our lunch sessions in the pub, they were great fun. I mean, it was, and he was very articulate. There's no sense of him losing any track of time or what he participated in and so on. I mean, on one occasion he telephoned me and said, "There's this woman who's coming to see me, and can you be there when she gets?" So I said yes. So we met in the pub. I mentioned that he'd been in a youth club, and this woman was clearing out something or the other and came across a whole stack of photographs of the youth club.
Wow.
In which there were many pictures of Clifton.
Wow.
And she was making a documentary. It might be, gosh, I wonder who she is. Because I think she was actually making a documentary about the club and about his involvement in the club. But there are all these pictures of Clifton as a teenager in this club, which is really quite. And so he also talked about that time, of being in that club and in the East End of London, and how enjoyable it was, and he really, his memory of it hadn't faded, it seemed.
Yeah. See, and this is wonderful that you're able to share these tidbits though too.
Yeah, well,
Clifton even had
what was that, Warren?
I was just going to say Clifton even had a wonderful scene in the episode Dragon's Domain where he's actually playing chess with Martin Landau.
Right.
It's a really nice moment. We're probably going to start to wind down here as well, folks. We don't want to keep you too long today, but if I could, I'd like to take 30 seconds and just run a little, we'll sort of segue back into Dragon's Domain for a moment. And there's a little clip here of some images, and we'll come back and have some final thoughts on the episode, if that's okay.
Okay.
And here we go. And there we go. And what I wanted to bring up, I did a little a promotional video last night, is that in my mind, I've said to many people down through the years that Dragon's Domain to the casual fan is sort of one of three pop culture lexicons, if you will, that people remember, as a casual fan, not like Roy and I, who are crazed. But there's three things. There's the episode, so just in passing, the episode Dragon's Domain. People also remember Maya, generally from year 2, as well as the Eagle spacecraft, right? And those are really the three things that sort of solidify Space 1999's presence in popular culture, if you will. So it was an incredible hour of television. It broke a lot of ground, and to this day, it's still nightmare-inducing. I think to many people. And inspired the Alien franchise. A lot of people say that the writers of the very first Alien movie may have seen Dragon's Domain, because there are definite similarities there to some of the plot points and story points as well. Roy, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna actually pivot off of that. No, definitely. It's as we were saying at the beginning. I mean, adults that were our age when the show was being televised for the very first time were traumatized by seeing it. I remember my parents, they went downstairs they went to a neighbor, and they were literally went downstairs, and I was just upstairs just for a few minutes, and the episode was on, and this was probably like 76, 77, and was on in a rerun. And when that scene came on, and actually I had my tape recorder going, and I still actually have that tape to this day, because I would tape the episodes on a cassette tape before VCRs. And when the monster came on, I went on the side of the TV because I didn't want to watch it. I was afraid. And then I was like kicking myself, like, oh my God, I missed that, But one of the things too that you brought up too, Warren, in regards to things that are remembered about this episode, the Ultra Probe. I mean, that ship was so cool from a modeler standpoint. There were two that were conceived. One was 5 feet, and the other one was maybe about 2.5 feet. I'm sure Chris Trice is out there, so other modelers that are out there, probably have more information. But Martin Bauer had built those two models, and also the command module, which was really cool from that. This is from 1612, one of the ones that I have. Also, the music. Somebody was commenting about the music, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation. Adiago, if I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Adagio in G minor.
Adagio in G minor. Beautiful, beautiful music. And I remember going to different stores trying to find that piece before the soundtracks were out and released, and then coming across it and just listening to that. And then in research, I found out that this recording of the music was done in 1966 that was shown in the episode. And then also the organ that's played too is fantastic. And that was at an organ that was utilized in Paris. So just a lot that went into this episode. I mean, we always like to say, music, also the sound effects, the vocals, it all adds to the final product. But of course, if you're even just watching this visually without any audio, it's terrifying because seeing what that monster is doing in the different cuts. James is out there. He's saying hello to everyone. Also want to acknowledge the performances by Barbara Kellerman, Michael Schur, Susan Jameson. I mean, to his point, I mean, they convey absolute terror, and when each of them is being picked off by the creature in the episode. So that's all in the performance, and that just really resonates and comes through to make this a horrifying episode. But again, one of the classics of Space 19.
Can I say that Barbara Kellerman was in the year 1 year below me in drama school.
Oh wow!
We were in drama school together, Barbara Kellerman and I.
That's fantastic.
I was a year ahead of her.
That would have been really cool if you had gotten to act, together in the episode and had a direct scene then too, Anton. That would have been really great.
Yes. Funnily enough, it doesn't happen at all often. I mean, the number of people I might have worked with from drama school is few and far between.
Oh, and Chris, thank you, Chris. He's saying 5 foot 2.5 feet and a close-up section of 124. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. Also, comment about Troubled Spirit is another terrifying episode. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. But yeah.
Year one did have a lot of the, we've talked about this, Roy, that, there was quite a few instances and moments throughout year one that were pretty shocking for the time.
Oh, absolutely.
And of course, Dragon's Domain. Yeah. Over the top.
Alan commented, so the only downside of Dragon's Domain is too short. Really should have been. Yeah, this could have actually would have made for a great 2-part episode for Space 1999. Absolutely, I totally agree.
Especially with all the flashback and backstory.
Yeah, easily saying Dragon's Domain, in my opinion, is the best episode of the series. Still outstanding today. I was either 9 or 10 when it was originally broadcast. Yeah, we're all in that same area. The visual menace of knowing the monster is about to devour someone was, I think, the big reason for its enduring popularity. Nothing like it had been on TV before or since. No, and to your point, great point, Faye, about that. And then also, Warren, you were commenting about Alien, and got to give a shout out to our friends David Hirsch and Bob Wood in regards to their books. If you haven't gotten it, check it out. One of the things that is mentioned in here too, because they have they talked about the web, which was the original conception for the story of Dragon's Domain by Chris Penfold. And it almost has kind of an alien-esque type of background because of it's a spider, and then it's also like laying these eggs. And, there's that. Yeah, exactly. It's creepy. So
it is.
And one other thing real quick, folks, is that this episode, because of its popularity, was heavily merchandised and marketed as well via story albums, the novelizations, and even trading cards.
Yes.
Yeah.
Number 10. And I love the way it says that that's Eagle 1. I remember thinking, what? That's not right.
Wow, wonderful. Yeah. Well, listen, thanks so much again, you guys. I think we'll wrap up for this week. We'd like to thank everybody out there who's tuned in today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Space 1999, this episode. To our special guests, Anton and Suzanne, from both Roy and myself, thank you again for your time today. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thanks. That's a pleasure, as always, chatting with you guys. It's more fun when it's in person, face to face.
Yes.
Hey, this is pretty good. Second choice, shall we say?
Yeah.
No, it's always wonderful to see you, Anton and Suzanne. So I'm just so happy we can do this at least virtually, because back in the day we would be doing the old telephone.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Okay, lovely.
Bye, everybody.
Please stay. Don't go away just quite yet, but we're going to tune out to everyone and mark your calendars. We will be back to discuss Testament of Arcadia, which will be the final episode, but we have not set upon a date, but we hopefully will have some surprises in regards to that. And thank you as always for joining us, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye for now.